Start here shortly.
Discover the magic within Utah State Parks with the annual State Parks Pass.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right, so we are here in K-Talk radio station, 1640 AM. Today on the show, Utah Home Sweet Home, we are going to talk about how to find great deals. If you've ever thought about how these investors find these properties that they fix and flip and how they're able to find such good opportunities, that's what we're going to talk about today. So stay tuned. You can tune in to 1640 AM if you'd like. Here we go. Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Actually, it's 9:05. You're listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. You are listening to the show Utah Home Sweet Home, and I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki. You guys are in for a special treat. At least I think so. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I actually spoke at an event on Thursday on this very topic, and I thought, you know what? The reception of that topic was received so well that I thought I'm going to share this with the listeners today on K-Talk Radio. So we're going to be going over, we're going to be discussing how to find great deals on in the market right now. The market's so hot, and so you see these shows where people fix and flip houses. You hear about these investors that will pick up great rental properties, and I would say lots of people ask me, how do you find these deals? How do you find these great deals? Market's so hot, it's so competitive. I'll put an offer, there'll be a bidding war, and I get outbid, and it's over asking price, and so that surely wouldn't be a good property to buy and fix and flip because you wouldn't be able to sell it for more than what you bought it for. So we're going to go over the secrets on how to find these great deals where you can get an opportunity, whether it's owner-occupied, whether it's to purchase as an investment property, or maybe you're thinking about fixing and flipping houses. So we're going to go over how to find good deals. We'll be discussing the top questions I'm asked as a consultant. For those of you that don't know, I also do real estate consulting, and so I get a lot of questions, and I'll share with you the top questions I'm asked from people who are learning how to get involved in the real estate game. We'll also be hearing about a nightmare story. I've actually got a couple stories I'm going to share with you, and the lessons you can learn from these stories that I learned from hearing these stories that somebody else went through. As we always talk about, nightmare stories are probably a little bit more fun to listen to and hear about versus go through. And then after that, we'll go back to talking about finding more deals, how to find these good deals off and off the market. I should say on the MLS and off the MLS. So I'll refer to off-market deals, meaning they're not even for sale, hypothetically. On-market deals are deals that are for sale. Everybody knows about them. They're the most competitive deals. But if you can find a deal that's technically not even for sale, then you have no competition when you negotiate with that particular seller to purchase that house. So we'll be talking about that, and let's dive into it. So for those of you who don't know, basically, as I mentioned before, I happen to be a consultant. I'm a national public speaker on the topic of real estate investing. I've consulted over 100 investors on one-on-one calls throughout the US and Canada. So basically, I get subcontracted through two companies, one in Chicago, one in Canada, that will hire me to fly across the nation to speak to their audiences. And for some of these companies, they then have these investors who will purchase one-on-one consulting. So they basically, a lot of these investors will come to these speaking events, hear how to do a lot of this stuff, and then they go home and figure it out. And then other investors want a little bit more hand-holding. And so I've done a lot of hand-holding in the real estate world, over 100 investors throughout the U.S. and Canada. And as far as speaking, I've also spoke to over thousands of different investors on stage throughout the U.S. on the topics of buying and fixing and flipping houses, as well as rental properties. It's what I do. Personally, I fix and flip houses, and so I also buy rental properties. And so these individuals will hire these companies where I will help fulfill those consultants' needs as they go forward and invest in real estate. So the top 3 questions that I get asked as a consultant. So obviously I'm also a real estate agent, as you probably already know if you've been listening to the show. These are not the top 3 questions I get asked as a real estate agent. These are the top 3 questions I get asked as a consultant. So we'll go through these 3 questions really quickly here. I'll tell you what they are, and then I will give you my thoughts on these 3 questions. So question number 1 is, how do I find a good but fair priced contractor, right? So if you're buying real estate investments, a lot of these properties are going to need some TLC, some tender loving care. So how do we go about finding contractors? And the next question I get asked a lot is, should I hire a property manager? If you're going to buy a rental property, a lot of people will hire property managers. Is that something that you should do as well? And how do I find underpriced houses, right? That's the key. You know, you can't fix and flip a house that you pay full market price for, increase the value, but now you've increased it more than what that neighborhood's worth, so you won't be able to sell it. So we've got to find underpriced properties that there's enough spread that we can go in there and either make the rental income work or make the numbers work, that when we fix it up, turn around and sell it, there is an opportunity for us there to make a profit. So a lot of that, depending on how you're going to be looking for underpriced values, meaning, I should say, if you're looking for underpriced values as a rental property or an owner-occupied property or a flip, they're all going to be a little bit different in that if you're looking for an owner-occupied property that you're going to live in happily ever after, you probably don't need as steep as a discount as a flipper would. You can find good deals out there that you're going to pay less than everybody else, less than market price, but it's still probably going to be more than what a flipper could pay, because a flipper really needs to get it down to a certain price that he can still go put in $50,000, $60,000, $40,000 into the property and still have room to turn around and sell it. Same kind of concept with rental properties. If you're not going to sell the property and it's something you're holding on to, then you can typically pay more for a property but still get a good discount. So in the sense of rentals, this would be an avenue where the rental income is more important, let's say, than the actual purchase price. Granted, you can get that rental income to supersede your mortgage payment and actually make some cash flow, or at least, at the very least, break even, where now you have some tenant who's hypothetically paying off your property for you. So we're going to dive into each of these questions, my thoughts on all of them. So let's attack the first question. How do I find good, fair priced contractors? So basically, there's quite a few ways. Good old Google, good old Google is a great place to go to find anything. And so you can start with Google. There's a website out there called Service Magic, and I think they've changed the name recently. It still may be Service Magic. You can Google Service Magic and it'll probably still pull up if that's not the name anymore. But it's a pretty cool website in that it's a base for all types of contractors, whether it's, let's say, tile, roofer, plumber, electrician, whatever specialty you're looking for. You can go on there and find that particular type of subcontractor, and there are reviews. This is what makes this website so helpful, is there are reviews from previous clients of that particular website. So if you were to go to Google and let's say Google roofers, there are going to be a lot of roofers, but there's typically no reviews of other people's opinion on how that roofer, performed. where if you go to Service Magic, what's really nice about that is you can read other people's reviews. So there might be people that say, well, this particular roofer took longer than he said, the bid went higher than he said, it took, he rarely showed up. So you can read these types of reviews about these particular contractors to get an idea of who you're going to be working with. And what's nice is there's typically multiple reviews. So if you read the same review and it's negative over and over and over, that's probably someone that you're not going to want to use. So what's really nice about this website is it is a community-based website in that community can put in their remarks about the performance of that particular contractor. So that's typically a good place to start. KSL is another good place to start here locally in the state of Utah. You can go into KSL. There's some good contractors that will advertise themselves on that website. There's no reviews on KSL, so you're going to basically have to do your own interview process with that particular contractor and kind of get an idea if that's somebody who you think you may want to use. So the nice thing, again, like I said about Service Magic, is you really get some feedback from other individuals, which helps you kind of really choose the best contractor that you think, in your opinion, would work. So KSL, I would say Google, and I would say Service Magic are probably three great places to start if you don't have any resources for referrals. So you're starting from scratch, you don't know anybody who's used a roofer, and now at this particular time, you need to go find a roofer for a project that you just purchased or your own primary residence. Those are great websites to begin with. So contractors, my personal opinion is you're going to definitely want to get bids from multiple contractors. So it's interesting. I was chatting with a individual not that long ago, and he was from France. This is a guy from France, and he shared with me that the French government typically gets 5 bids from 5 different contractors when looking to get work done anywhere in France. And it's actually a great idea for anybody who's looking to remodel a home or find a subcontractor for electrical, plumbing. Because if you just hire the first person, you don't know if that first person is overpriced. So the nice thing about hiring or getting 5 bids is you could hypothetically eliminate the cheapest one, eliminate the most expensive one, and you've got 3 now that are going to be the going rate for that market. So you know that you're not overpaying for that particular service. Here in the Salt Lake City area, it's incredible where you can go up to Park City, and because there's so much wealth up in Park City in the Heber area, contractors will typically charge more because they can to those individuals than, let's say, in versus other parts of the city. So if you were to go in other parts of Salt Lake, that same contractor's bid would probably be different for the exact same job up in Park City versus in Salt Lake City. So what's nice is if you get at least 5 bids, you can get a good idea of what the going rate is in that particular area. And in this particular case, a good example like Park City versus Salt Lake City, I can see why contractors do charge a little bit more because it's a little further commute, but how much more should they charge for that extra commute? So a good idea would be to hypothetically get bids, let's say Salt Lake City bids. If you have the opportunity to get bids here in Salt Lake, then you would get an idea of what the going rate is in this metro city of Salt Lake City. Then when you ask them to go up to Park City, hypothetically, let's say, or Heber, you'll know that, okay, it'll be a little bit more because they have a further commute, but it shouldn't be, let's say, astronomical more, where if you don't get bids, you're probably just going to get really super expensive bids. I know this because I work with a lot of contractors, and they share with me that depending on what part of town they're in, will depend on how much they bid that project. So how do I find fair price contractors? I would say start with those websites, and then you want to get those bids, and then the final thing is you're going to want to do background checks on these individuals. So the nice thing about Service Magic, again, is it has those other people's comments that you can read in the past to get a good idea of what other people's experiences were. So that's helpful. Another thing that you could do is Google these contractors. Something that I like to do is I will Google first the name of their business and see if there's any negative remarks just anywhere on the internet that I can find in regards to that particular contractor. And then here's something that I like to do is I'll Google just their phone number. I've had experiences where I've met new contractors, got bids from them, Googled their phone number, and it pulled up a website where they had a bunch of negative reviews from people that had horrible experiences with them. Well, when that contractor realized that his company was being dragged through the mud on the internet, he simply changed the name of his company, but he didn't change the phone number. He didn't change his phone number. So now he has a new company name, but he still has the same phone number, and by Googling just that phone number, I was able to find his old company name with all of his old negative remarks on the internet. So I'll Google the contractor's company's name, and then I will also Google their phone number to see if it pulls up anything. And then you'll also want to do a search on the government website just to confirm that they are licensed. Their license is active. I remember a story where I was living in New York City at the time. I was fixing and flipping a house up in upstate New York, and had a wonderful conversation with a great salesman. He was a contractor who knew a lot about how to sell himself. But yet, when I pulled up his license, it was inactive for over 5 years. So you're definitely going to want to check on that. Make sure that these individuals are licensed, and you're going to want to make sure that you're dealing with professional individuals. Okay, so I'm getting the signal that it is time for a commercial break in 5 seconds. So stay tuned. We'll go over the next questions as soon as we get back. With smartphones and technology making life a little easier, the Snap Leash has also been designed to make life a little easier for you and your pup. Whether you're out on a stroll in the park or possibly a walk through the city or maybe even a hike up in the mountains, the Snap Leash is the perfect leash for you. The Snap Leash can easily and conveniently convert into 7 types of leashes, making the Snap Leash the most convenient leash in the world. What other leash do you know that is 7 leashes in one? With the Snap Leash having appearances on the Today Show in New York City, TV 47 in Dallas, Texas, and ABC 4 on Midday, Utah, you are definitely going to want to take a peek at what the Snap Leash can do for you and your best friend. Make life a little easier for you and your pup, and visit www.snapleash.com today. All right, guys, we are back. It is Saturday morning. You're listening to the show Utah Home Sweet Home. You are listening to K-Talk Radio 1640 AM, and today we're going to talk about, if you're just tuning in now, how to find good deals. We're talking about right now specifically how to find fair-priced and good contractors, right? A lot of people, you hear these nightmare stories about contractors that will take your money and not show up. They'll take your deposit, never return, or they come back and the job is finished way longer than they quoted. So we're going to talk about how to find so what we're talking about right now is how to find good contractors that we can eliminate those bad experiences with. So we just basically went over that you're going to want to do some background checks on them, due diligence. Basically, you're going to want to do some due diligence on these individuals by seeing what you can find, making sure they're licensed and insured and their license is active, and making sure that they've got good remarks on the internet. No bad comments with other people's bad experiences. To the best of our ability, this will help us find good contractors, and then also getting multiple bids on a project so that you understand what the going rate is for that particular area. Okay, so now the next question I get asked a lot is, should I hire a property manager? So it depends. I think that if there's so much to learn about property management that it's probably a good idea, in my personal opinion, to hire one at least in the beginning. And you can then observe how your property manager finds your tenants, does the marketing, how they manage your tenants, how they manage when your tenants need repairs in the home, how they manage when your tenants don't pay on time, how they collect the rent, how they manage if you have to evict a tenant, and basically get a Crash 101 course on property management. I think it's a good idea in the beginning to hire a property manager, observe how they handle things, and this will give you a good idea on how you can go ahead and start managing your property. Unless you're going to go out and get educated, hire a mentor. There are mentors out there, like myself. I've consulted, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, people on this type of topic. I have friends that are mentors and consultants on this type of topic as well, here locally and nationally. Unless you're going to hire a mentor who's going to hold your hand through that process, I think it's a good idea to hire a property manager, just because there's so many things that you need to learn in regards to property management. And then once you start to feel comfortable, or again, unless you hire a mentor who's teaching you this, then at that particular point, I think it's probably very manageable to manage a small portfolio of your own property, which can save you some money, maybe not save you headache, but it can definitely save you some money by not having to pay a property manager if you're comfortable with that particular process. Now, I like property managers. I think if you find a good one, they're worth their weight in gold. So I personally hire property managers. It just works better for me. They're better at it than I am. That is their specialty. We all have our specialty. We may know a lot about a lot of different things, but we all definitely have our specialty. Property managers, when you find a good one, they're definitely, like I said, they're worth their weight in gold. And so me personally, I like hiring property managers, but I have a lot of friends that manage their own properties simply because they enjoy it, they like it, they're good at it, and it saves them some money. So the final question that I typically get asked, in the top 3 questions I'm asked by my consulting clients, again, these are my clients that hire me to consult them in real estate investing, is how do I find underpriced houses? All right, so this is, it was last Thursday, I spoke at an event. The Salt Lake Real Estate Investing Association had an event. They invited me in, and I spoke on this particular topic: how to find good price, how to find good priced, undervalued real estate. And here's what's great about what I'm about to share with you guys. We're gonna have a lot of fun here now. This is one of my favorite topics, because if you don't find the good deal, it's very difficult to invest in real estate. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I speak for 2 different companies, one out of Canada, one out of Chicago, where I will fly nationally, and this is one of the topics that's received the best. Everybody wants to know how to find underpriced real estate. And what I'm about to share with you, these investors that come to these events pay thousands of dollars to hear this information, and I'm about to share it with you right now here on K-Talk Radio 1640 AM live. So get your pens and paper out. You're going to want to take notes, because there's going to be a lot of good stuff I'm going to share with you. So the first way that you may want to entertain looking for good priced opportunities, let's just say you're working with a real estate agent. You're going to request for them to set up a hot sheet. Okay, so for those of you that don't know what a hot sheet is, a hot sheet is basically your realtor will go into the MLS, which is the Multiple Listing Service Software database. They'll go online, and a hot sheet is basically they plug in the criteria of what you're looking for. So let's just say that you were looking for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath in Contwood Heights, that you wanted to be at least 3,000 square feet, that you wanted to be in the price point of $350,000 to $500,000, right? If you're shopping for that type of home, your realtor will go into the MLS, Multiple Listing Service, and put in that information. And then what will happen is every day a property that hits the market that meets that criteria, you'll get an email notifying you, hey, here's a property, then this is what the hot sheet is, here's a property that meets your criteria based off of the requirements that you requested. So we will set up hot sheets in a different way to look for good opportunities to potentially find underpriced valued properties. So the first one is we want to set a hot sheet that triggers an email that sends us deals, opportunities, real estate transactions that are for sale that have been on the market, days on market, for 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, and 365 days. Okay, so what this means is anytime a property that has sat on the market for at least 90 days, 120 days again, and then again at 180, and then again at 365, we will get an email notifying, hey, this is a house that's not moving. Right now, we're in a hot market, so properties are not lasting very long. So it's interesting when you see a property that sits on the market for a long time, 90 days, 120, 180, 365. There's a reason why these properties aren't selling. Oftentimes, it's the asking price. In many cases, the seller is not being completely realistic with what their house will sell for, so they're trying for a much higher price, and the property is just not moving, so it sits there for those periods of time. Now, here's the thing. If a property has been on the market for 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, 365 days, every time it hits your inbox, what I like to do is I will take a peek at the pictures of the property. If the property is drop dead gorgeous, then what's probably wrong with the property is the price, and that's why it's sitting there. It's probably overpriced, and that's why it's sitting there. So those I don't really do a lot with. However, if there's a property that's sitting on the market for that length of time, and I click on the pictures and it needs some TLC, some tender loving care, it's a little rough around the edges, then I'm going to submit an offer on that particular property, because there's a good chance that the seller is maybe a little bit more motivated today to sell since he's had the property on the market for so long versus the first week that he was on the market, right? A lot of times a house will hit the market and people will submit offers, and maybe the house is rough around the edges, so they'll submit offers that are lower than asking price. But because that seller just went on the market, he's going to reject, or she's going to reject those offers in many cases. But 180 days later, when no one's submitting offers anymore because that property is old news, and this now seller is starting to lower their price because they're like, oh gosh, it's not selling, and it sat there for so long, and it's rough around the edges, then I'm going to put together my analysis and basically submit that offer to that particular individual. Now, when I say my analysis, whether I'm going to buy it as a flip or buy it as a rental, my analysis is different. If I'm buying it for a flip, I'm working backwards from the price that I'll be able to turn around and sell it once it's all fixed up. What I could sell it for, it's called an ARV, an after repair value. I'm going to determine my ARV, my after repair value, and then work backwards from there. How much do I have in costs of realtor fees, closing costs when I sell it? How much does it cost for me to fix it up, 30, 40 grand? How much is hard money cost if you're borrowing hard money? How much does that cost? And then how much you want to make, right? And then you're going to work backwards, and that's the number you're going to submit. And sometimes it's dramatically lower than their asking price. Sometimes it's close, not too far from their asking price. But whatever it is, that's just the number I'm going to submit. My goal isn't to buy the house. My goal is to buy the house at the price that will be profitable, right? Because we can offer full price and buy the house. That's not the goal. So what I do is I do my analysis, no emotions involved. It's strictly numbers. Once I come up with that number of what I can pay for it to be a profitable deal for me, I'll go ahead and submit that number. Now, if they don't accept it and it's 180 days, then we're just going to keep tracking it, right? As this hits our inbox on the hot sheet, because it's sitting there on the market, not selling, every time it hits the market, we will resubmit a new offer. And at some point, either the seller is going to decide, you know what, I just don't want to sell this house anymore because the price I'm trying to get is just not happening. And maybe they need a certain price because their loan is that price. They can't even go less than that, or they'll be negative, or they'll lose. So they take it off the market, or they finally give in to a price that somebody's going to submit lesser, and hopefully that somebody's you. So that's the first thing that we do, is we create this hot sheet so that we're notified anytime properties that hit the market that are sitting there a long, long time. Now, there is a strategy you can do for the ones that are drop dead gorgeous. We talked about, I typically don't do a lot with them, but if they've sat on the market for a very long time and they're overpriced, then you could hypothetically potentially offer them a seller financed offer. So with seller financing, it's a long-term play if you're paying overpriced for the house. So I had a mentor once tell me, It's a great example. It's the ultimate extreme example that helps you understand seller financing as an investor. So he shared with me, I would pay $1 million for a home that's only worth $100,000 if the seller was willing to seller finance me the home for $1 a month for 1 million months. So he's willing to pay $900,000 over the price of the home, over the value of the price of the home, as long as the seller would allow $1 a month mortgage payment for 1 million months. And the reason you do that is because if your mortgage payment was only $1 and you could rent that for $2,000, your cash flow is really good, even though you overpaid $900,000. What's important in seller financing, though, is the terms more than the price. See, I'm willing to overpay on a house. I'm willing to overpay on a purchase price than the value of the home if the monthly mortgage payment is affordable, right? Because I can then turn around and rent that property for the going rent, and as long as the mortgage payment, the terms that I've got with the seller is less than the rental income, then I'm going to make some cash flow. So if a property is set on the market 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, 365 days, and it needs some TLC, I'm usually going to submit an offer to flip it. But if the property sat there for 180 days, 365, a really long time, then that's where I'm going to make an offer to do seller financing. And that's a whole other topic that we'll get into possibly on another show. But just to kind of help you understand, if you're curious how seller finance works, feel free to shoot me an email and I'd be happy to send you some information. But a very good opportunity for those homes that are beautiful for the seller who still wants his overpriced price. Okay, another way that we go about finding these great opportunities on the MLS, the multiple listing service, you're going to tell your realtor to set up a different hot sheet. And just to clarify, let's just go back really quickly. Sorry, I should have said this earlier. When I set up these hot sheets for myself, I set up a hot sheet called 90 Days on Market, 90 DOM, Days on Market. So anytime I get an email with the subject that says 90 Days on Market, I know that what I'm opening up are properties that have sat there for 90 days on market. And then a separate email, a separate hot sheet for 120 days. And then titled 120 days on market. And then another one for 180, another one for 365. So those are all individual emails, all individual hot sheets, right? It keeps it clean versus one hot sheet for all of them. Then you have to check the days on market and go, is this one that's been on the market for 365 days or just 90 days, right? Because it matters. The longer it's been on the market, hypothetically, typically, the more motivated the seller will be, which will give you an idea on how good of an offer you can submit. Good in the sense that how low you can submit an offer based off of how good of a deal you're trying to put together. Okay, so now, completely different hot sheet. Now we do a hot sheet based off of the remarks that an agent will put into the remark section of the multiple listing service. So I like to put the letters TLC, which stands for tender loving care. So anytime a real estate agent in their remarks puts, who's, let's say, a listing agent who's selling a house, saying, hey, this house is beautiful, but it does need some TLC, a little bit of tender loving care, then I'm going to be notified the day that property hits the market on a hot sheet that's basically letting me know there's a property out there that somebody is specifying needs some tender loving care, which is a great opportunity for an investor to pick up a good deal because that house might be rough around the edges. See, when you get a house that's rough around the edges, that needs some TLC, that's not the house that that's not the house that the newly married couple is hoping to purchase to raise their children in, right? Those are the types of opportunities that investors are looking for, because we're going to go in there and we're going to fix it up to then make it nice enough to turn around and sell it to that newlywed new couple that just got married who wants to raise their kids and live happily ever after, right? So by finding these opportunities like TLC, other remarks that you're going to set up in your hot sheet is handyman. Okay, the word handyman. Usually an agent's going to put handyman special. Another word they're going to put is investor special, but I just put handyman and investor. So that way if somebody writes handyman special, this house is a handyman special, this house is an investor special, I'm going to be notified in the hot sheet that somebody is looking to sell a property that's rough around the edges. So TLC, handyman special, investor special, estate sale, and then the word damage. Okay, these are all hot sheets. This is actually one hot sheet. All of these words will trigger a hot sheet to me if an agent puts any of those words in the remarks. So damage can usually be preceded by fire damage, structural damage, termite damage, water damage, and then the word also condemned, and then mold. So those are all, I'm going to set up a hot sheet with all of those words in there so that I'm notified that there's a property that just hit the market that's rough around the edges that, again, most people are not shopping for. So what does that mean? If most people aren't shopping for it, then it eliminates a lot of your competition. So if it eliminates a lot of your competition, your odds of purchasing that property at a great price go up dramatically. So if you're willing to do a little bit of work on an investment property or an owner-occupied, there's a lot of people out there who can do the work themselves, then this is a great way to go out and find some of these underpriced opportunities. Now again, you're submitting an offer based off of the numbers that need to work for you. The asking price is irrelevant to you. The asking price is relevant obviously to the seller. But our goal again isn't to buy a house. It's to buy a house that will be profitable for us. So you're going to analyze these properties when they hit your inbox in the hot sheet, whether it's TLC, handyman, investor, special, estate sale, fire damage, etc. You're then going to do the necessary analysis to figure out how much can you pay for that home, and then you're simply going to submit that offer. I did this search, TLC search, just the word TLC, tender loving care. I did this search on the MLS a couple months ago in Salt Lake County, and there were 35 properties that the listing agent had wrote in the remarks, this house, the words TLC. Basically, this house is in need of some TLC. So there's 35 opportunities. Again, this was a couple months ago, but there were 35 opportunities that could have hypothetically submitted 35 offers at the price necessary to be able to find a good opportunity that's underpriced. Okay. And again, what's super important is, depending on what you're looking for, patience is going to be critical. I know a lot of investors, they just want to get their feet wet. They want to do it as quickly as possible. And so they rush into a deal and they tend to overpay. So we want to make sure we're patient and we're strictly buying properties that make sense based off of the analysis. All right, so we're getting ready to go to commercial break again, and we'll be back talking about how to find great opportunities. Hi, I'm Yoshi Shiraki, the author of the book, My Body's Just For Me, the book written for children to educate children on the prevention of child abuse. With the assistance of multiple best-selling author Richard Paul Evans, we were able to publish this book as a tool to help break the ice in an easy and innocent way to help children understand and learn how to speak up and communicate. I have been invited numerous times onto Good Things Utah to discuss the importance of good communication with your child in regards to abuse, and also to discuss the book, My Body's Just For Me, and how it's a great tool for every parent when having that tricky conversation with their children. For more information on the book, My Body's Just For Me, please visit www.protectourangels.com today. And remember, the more we focus on prevention, the less we'll have to focus on rehabilitation. All right, guys, we are back. It's K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. You are listening to the show Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and today we're talking about how to find good opportunities to buy real estate, good priced opportunities. How do we find these good deals? Okay, so we just got done talking about how to set up hot sheets. Now, again, if you're not a real estate agent, obviously, you're going to ask your real estate agent how to please set up these hot sheets for you. And we talked about the different types of hot sheets that you'd want to set up. Another great way that a lot of these investors will find good opportunities, believe it or not, is the good old-fashioned for sale by owner. You see those signs when you're driving around, for sale by owner. And here is the reality of for sale by owners. This is why you hear so many investors say, if you're looking for good deals, go to the for sale by owners. Because typically, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but typically for sale by owners don't really know exactly what they're doing. It'd be like me trying to sell a car. You know, I could try and sell a car, but I don't know how to sell a car. I've never sold a car. I could figure it out, and I could go through the process. That doesn't mean I'm going to sell it for top dollar, though. But car dealers, know how to sell cars for top dollar. That's what they're good at. Real estate investors know how to, and real estate agents know how to sell houses for top dollar, because that's what they do. That's what they do for a living. They're good at it. That's what they spend their time doing. For sell by owners, don't. And so what their motivation is to save the 6% that they would typically pay for a real estate agent, but in many cases, they end up selling for dramatically less. I believe the national average is, I don't even want to say it because I can't remember exactly, but the national average is for sell by owners lose on average when they sell their house. And I can't remember the percentage of how much they lose, but if you took the national average of every for sale by owner that's tracked in the United States, they typically lose money more than, let's say, the 6% they would have paid a real estate agent who would have been able to get them top dollar, because they didn't know exactly what they're doing, and the person that they were selling against was a professional. Usually it was a real estate agent representing a buyer or maybe a real estate investor, and these individuals knew what they were doing to be able to negotiate and get a good deal for their client or get a good deal for themselves. So there is a reason why you always hear real estate investors and gurus out there talking, if you're looking for a good deal, focus on for sale by owners, because, again, I don't mean this in a bad way, but for sale by owners have no representation. They don't have real estate agents defending them and having their back to make sure they get top dollar. So a great way to find good real estate transactions is dealing with for sale by owners. And we're not trying to take advantage of them, but they oftentimes don't know what their house is worth, right? So I don't know what my car's worth. So if I put it on the market, let's say for $1,000, and I price it at $1,000, and somebody gives me $1,000, are they in the wrong to pay me $1,000 for my car if they know it's worth $5,000? No, I asked for $1,000, right? They don't know what my situation is. I want $1,000 for this car. They know it's worth $5,000, so they turn around and they buy it, and maybe they sell it for, they sell it for $5,000 themselves and flip it. So for sale by owners, in many cases, are sometimes the cheapest real estate available out there. Now, sometimes they're way overpriced, again, because they don't know what their house is worth, but because they don't know what their house is worth, sometimes they're not overpriced, they're underpriced. So another great way to find good opportunities is we focus on for sale by owner transactions. So if you're looking to buy an owner-occupied or an investment property, a great rental, or a fix and flip, you're going to want to call all of the for sale by owner signs that you see, right? And here's another thing. For sale by owners typically have the weakest marketing trying to sell their home. And again, it's because they don't know. I wouldn't really know how to market my car to sell really well. I'd throw it on KSL and call it a day. Well, that's exactly what for sale by owners do. They throw their house on KSL and call it a day, and they put a for sale sign on it, right? I'd probably put a for sale sign on my car too. So that's pretty much what they do. They put a for sale sign for sale by owner in their front yard, and then they put it on KSL. Now, by the third day, their listing on KSL is down on the third page and no one sees it anymore. And unless you're driving past their house, you don't even know that house is for sale. The only people that know their house is for sale is their neighbors who see it every single day driving to and from work. So the marketing, unfortunately, is not the strongest type of marketing. So because of that, they sit on the market for a long, long time. And again, we talked about those 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, 365 days on the market where motivation increases for a seller the longer that the house is on the market. Well, for sale by owner, nobody even knows their house is for sale, 3 days later, because it's not on KSL anymore. Well, it is, but it's down on the third or fourth page. And so these individuals start to get more motivated and more motivated. So when you see a for sale by owner sign, you don't know if that sign's 100 days old or 1 day old. So call it. Call it and get some information on that particular property, see what they're asking, and then based off of what they're asking, it may be a good opportunity. They may have continued to lower the price over the last 100 days to now where it's like a great deal. I once helped a client who was a for sale by owner. He had his property on the market. I can't remember. It was like he had the property on his market, for like $250,000 as a for sale by owner forever, and it was actually underpriced. He didn't know it though because he used certain websites that are free to the public, and those websites are unfortunately not super accurate. And so he used one of these free websites, went there, pulled up his address, and the website said, this is the estimate of what your house is worth. So he listed it at $250,000, and it was a great price, but nobody knew it was for sale. He got tired of trying to be a for sale by owner. I think he tried to do it for about 3 months, and through a referral, I was introduced to this individual, and I pulled comps on it. And the house was easily worth $265, right? All day, comped out, $265. Houses in that neighborhood selling for $265 and possibly even $275. And he'd been trying to sell it for $250. So I shared with him, I said, well, here's what I think your price, the house would sell for. Here's what I think it would appraise for. Here's what I think you could get for it. I think you're in the world of $265 to $275. He was so over trying to sell it that he didn't even try to go for $275. He's like, I just want this sold. So if you think it could sell for $265 to $275, I'm happy going with the lower number if that will help speed up the process. I said, well, I really think it's anywhere in there. We could experiment with both and lower the price in due time. Typically 14 days. If it doesn't move at $275, we can go down to $265. He said, no, let's just do it at $265. I said, great. We had an offer the next day. I put it on the multiple listing services, saturated the internet with it. We put it all over the internet, Craigslist, KSL, there's a bunch of websites, that obviously the multiple listing service. And we literally had an offer the next day, full price, $265. Mind you, he'd been selling it for $250 for the last 3 months and didn't get that price. So again, it just goes to, people just don't know it's for sale. Their marketing's very poor. So that's a great opportunity where somebody could have come in, bought a nice owner-occupied house, had they known about the property, and instantly got $15,000 to $25,000 in equity, right? And in this particular case, the neighbors, again, were the only one who knew about it. Maybe some people drove past it that were searching, but didn't bother to call it. So, and that's why I say investors really. Good investors will oftentimes call every single one of these for sale by owners signs when they pass by them. Okay, other websites that you can go to find for sale by owners obviously is KSL. So go to KSL and start calling them for sale by owners on there. And Craigslist is another good one. And there's also other websites like FSBO.com, which stands for salebyowner.com. And then there's forsalebyowner.com. And so you can go to these different websites. The problem with those websites is their information's oftentimes dated. So in many cases, you will go to those websites and call the seller, and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, my house sold 2-3 months ago." And so oftentimes those houses that are listed on those websites, FSBO, for sale by owner, they are a little old, they're a little dated. But if you're looking for a good opportunity, it doesn't hurt to take the time to reach out to some of these different websites and the different properties that are on those websites. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into the nightmare story. We're going to take a commercial break right now before the nightmare story, and then after the nightmare story, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to find good deals. But let's go ahead and dive into commercial break, Sean, if you don't mind. With smartphones and technology making life a little easier, the Snap Leash has also been designed to make life a little easier for you and your pup. Whether you're out on a stroll in the park, or possibly walk through the city, or maybe even a hike up in the mountains, the Snap Leash is the perfect leash for you. The Snap Leash can easily and conveniently convert into 7 types of leashes, making the Snap Leash the most convenient leash in the world. What other leash do you know that is 7 leashes in one? With the Snap Leash having appearances on the Today Show in New York City, TV 47 in Dallas, Texas, and ABC 4 on Midday, Utah, you are definitely going to want to take a peek at what the Snap Leash can do for you and your best friend. Make life a little easier for you and your pup, and visit www.snapleash.com today. All right, guys, we are back. It's K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. You're listening to the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki. We're talking about how to find good opportunities. But before we do that, before we jump back to that, I should say, we're gonna go through a nightmare story that I wanted to share with you, and the lesson you can learn. Now, this didn't happen to me, thankfully, and this probably doesn't happen to a lot of people. This is going to happen to somebody who's got a lot of cash, who pays cash, that doesn't get a loan for a house, and these are usually going to be investors or just people with a lot of cash. So, in this particular case, here's a good lesson. If you are in a position, you inherited a chunk of cash, or whatever it may be, you're in a position to purchase a house and you want to pay it off. You want to buy it free and clear. You're going to pay it off cash. then you need to pay attention to this nightmare story that sadly happened to somebody, but it actually turned out to be okay. And I'll tell you why it turned out okay, because you'll wonder why was this okay. So if you're going to get a loan on a home from Zions Bank, Chase Bank, Bank of America, they're going to require you to get homeowners insurance, because if the house burns down, they want to know that their investment that they just lent you a bunch of money is protected by the insurance if the house was to eventually burn away, right? But if you're an individual who has a chunk of change and a bunch of cash and you're going to go out there and purchase a property, then you don't have anyone requiring you to get insurance. And so this is the story of an individual who had a lot of cash and purchased an investment property using all cash, and because he didn't get a loan, he forgot to get insurance. And put a tenant in there temporarily, and unfortunately the tenant caught the house on fire and the house burned down. And so when the investor went to file a claim on the insurance, he realized that he never got insurance. And that right there is a nightmare story. Your house just burnt down and now you don't have a house and you don't have the cash anymore. Luckily for this investor, he had purchased that lot because he was going to develop other houses on there, and the plan was to eventually demo that house anyway, because that house was going to be the passageway to access this development of homes that he was going to build. So he was eventually going to demo the home and remove it anyway, but he figured while he was in the process of waiting for that part to come, he would rent it out and make some income. So thankfully, the loss of the home wasn't completely a waste, because he was going to get rid of it anyway, but had he had insurance, it could have been a better experience for him. So if you're out there, and believe it or not, I've been in this industry for over 10 years, and I have seen multiple people who pay cash for a house, thankfully their house didn't burn down, forget to get homeowners insurance. So it does happen a lot when you don't have the guidance of someone setting you up correctly and you're doing it yourself, and or maybe they tell you to get insurance but you just forget because you pay cash. And again, if you were getting a loan, you wouldn't be able to because the bank wouldn't do it unless you had it. But if you don't use a bank because you've got the money, then it's very easy for people to forget through all that paperwork and all the wiring of funds and title and due diligence and appraisal. It's easy to forget in there. Believe it happens more than you think. So good story and a good lesson to learn from if you are somebody who's going to pay cash. All right, so that's my nightmare story. I wanted to share with you one more strategy. There's actually a bunch, and there's just no way I could go through all this in an hour show. I'll speak on stage for 3 or 4 hours just on this topic nonstop, and so there's actually a bunch of different ways that we find good opportunities off the market. I'm going to give you one more. A good way to find deals is calling properties that are listed for rent, right? I had a mentor once tell me that you can pull up to the lake and fish there with your cooler and your barbecue comfortably with everybody else who also pulled up to the lake with their barbecue and cooler, and you're going to have the most competition trying to catch a fish. However, if you're the guy willing to put on the backpack, hike 3 miles up the stream, fish upstream, then you're going to have less competition. This is fishing upstream. This strategy is not done very often. Very, very few people will call for rent. And what I mean by that is you're going to call a house for rent and you're going to say, hey, Mr. Landlord, I see your house here on KSL. I see the for rent sign in your front yard. I've got a funny question. Would you be interested in selling by chance? Okay, you're probably going to get the answer no. That's why it's for rent, not for sale. But in many cases, or I should say in some cases, I wouldn't say many, in some cases, this is fishing upstream, guys. In some cases, you're going to get landlords that say, yeah, I'd be open to selling. Why? What are you thinking? And now you've sparked up the conversation where you can now look into the opportunity of purchasing a house that's not even for sale. So you have no competition because you're dealing with the seller directly, one-on-one, without anyone else knowing, right? And here's a very important key. If he was to say, no, it's not for sale, always say and ask a return question. I totally understand it's not for sale, but do you by chance have any other properties you're looking to sell? Because you may have called him on his favorite rental property, but he might have 2 more that he hates. And he might say, yeah, I'm actually interested in selling this one and this one and this one if you're interested. And again, guys, you have no competition because that property is technically not even for sale. So you're able to negotiate without this crazy bidding war in this super hot market. All right, so we talked about the different hot sheets. We talked about calling for sell by owners, and today we talked about calling for rents. It's time for the show to wrap. So I wanted to share with you guys, if by chance you missed any of this show, check out our website, www.utahhomesweethome.com. Click on the links on our social media links. These episodes will be put up on our social media if you want to rewatch them. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call, 801-810-4475. And you can also email me at ys@utahhomesweethome.com. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today. Maybe we'll do this again. There's just so many ways to find off-market great deals that investors will utilize. And if you want to hear more about those, maybe we'll do another show on it in the future. All right, thanks so much.